call the meeting of the Lathrup Village City Council to order and ask the clerk to do roll call, please.
Roll call, Mayor Garrett,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Here.
Councilmember Jennings,
Present.
Councilmember Canes,
Here.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So I invite everyone that's in the audience and council members to say the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, have approval of the agenda, please.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Canes.
Yes.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. We now will open up public comments for items that's on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. If anybody wants to speak, and come up to the laptop or raise your hand in the audience, which I can't really see if there's anybody. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sean Walter and I live at 27055 Eldorado Place. And I just wanted to thank you all for considering what we've been talking about, paving that section of Eldorado. I personally think, I've been there 9 years now, and I personally think it's very important that we take a hard look at our street. And I know a couple of you have viewed our street with the gravel and whatnot. It's just the drainage is a problem, standing water is a problem. And, I kind of think it's unsightly compared to all the other paved roads around us. We're the only dirt road left in that area. It's very inconvenient to cross over Meadowbrook, which was just paved from our street going north. And it's just been a nuisance, especially in the summertime when there's standing water, that breeds mosquitoes and everything else. The drainage ditches are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And I thank you all for considering working on our street. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak regarding items that's on the agenda for this evening? Okay, hearing none, then I will open up the public hearing for the Eldorado Place Special Assessment District. I just thought about it. Should it be paused for a second until the city attorney gets here?
I would suggest that.
Yeah.
If you want to go on, you can do other action items for consideration going down to item B.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's skip down to the action request for consideration and approval. We're going to skip down to B, the council rules of order and procedure revision.
Okay. This has just been visited recently and updated when the ethics ordinance was adopted. And the council rules of order and procedures was revised at that time to reflect some of that language. However, one of the sections in there, section 5, talks about the council meeting agenda and when the agenda is supposed to come out for council. Historically, it has always come out on Fridays, even though this has said Thursdays. So this is just reflecting what has historically been happening. And it actually gives gives staff the time to get those packet items all together and put out for council on that Friday. So that is the recommendation, is to go ahead and change that timeline from the Thursdays in there to the Friday evenings prior to the meetings.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Motion to change the packet submission timeline to council to Friday evening, the week preceding the meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
We have had this discussion multiple times, and the charter does say Thursday evening.
Charter does not say
Packets
Thursday
are
evening.
for council, well, the policies and procedures say Thursday. Packets are for council members. Council members that aren't involved in the development of the agenda or included in communications need time to properly prepare for meetings. We are a governing body and we make important decisions. Packet deadlines should be set for the convenience of staff. We need time to be thoughtful and prepared.
Any further discussion?
If we move the date and we don't feel we were adequately prepared because of limited time, or we can table agendas till the next meeting,
You
you can
could,
table items.
you could, if it would, if you get a majority rule for it.
I mean, I don't have a problem when a packet's this small, but some of our packets have been quite large.
Well, that's a good thing about voting for it right now.
Pardon me?
So that's a good thing. You can vote on it right now.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Is there room to adopt it for length of packages? If a packet is more than X number of pages, that we do need it one more day?
Well, there is a motion on the floor right now to change the date, so that motion would have to be voted down and then a new motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would conceivably be difficult to determine because they're not going to know how big the packet is until they, kind of get it together. So I don't know how you would administer that.
And also I'm thinking, so you did send this packet out on Thursday. So
And
is
It
there
was
a-
very
like-
difficult because we weren't here on Tuesday and Friday. It would have come out on Friday. However, we were not here on Friday. We were closed because of Veterans Day.
right.
And I was here until 8:30 that evening getting the packet out.
And just to reiterate, going on 12 years on council, we have not ever had the packet Thursday. If it did come on Thursday, it was like Thursday night, maybe 10 o'clock, and the police delivered it. So you still weren't looking at it until Friday unless that's what you like to do Thursday nights.
Yeah,
No, but this one says Friday night.
Does it say Friday night?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. say
What's the
Friday.
Friday? The
Well, I
Friday
mean, is it
preceding.
close of business?
Yeah.
I mean,
So we can say that it's Friday close of business.
Mhm.
It's difficult for people that work on the weekends.
when other time would you have to read it though? And if you got it on Thursday
Put it on
night,
Thursday night, I read it on-
but you're
I
working
get
on
this one
Friday too.
Thursday night.
I mean, but I'm just saying, there's really no difference because
Yeah, as far as-
regardless, you're working on where we all work on Friday, so. I mean, you would read it during the weekend. What other
Well,
time
I
would you read it?
I read it in pieces. Sometimes our packets are 300 and some pages. So it's a little difficult to schedule all that in for Monday.
We've never had a 300 packet.
Unless it was the budget. Maybe
I'm
the budget,
sorry.
but-
Yeah, the budget. I'm sorry, but
There have been some large
Okay, I
packets.
will
There have
go
been some
back.
large packets.
I'll bring them to you, Cal.
Yeah.
you don't have to, Karen. I'm just saying, okay, whatever. So any further discussion? Hello, city attorney. Apology accepted. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Canes,
Did we pick a timeline when this was going to be done and ready and prepared?
No, that was, the motion is to change the packet submission timeline to council to the Friday evening of the week preceding the meeting. Because there's a motion on the floor, the most that it could say is changing it to end of business Friday.
Which it's not my intent to stay long on Friday evenings because I do want to go home on Friday
Well, I'm
evening.
just thinking.
But we do
how-
have a motion on the floor right now,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
need to
It's a
either
yes
say
or
yay
no.
or nay.
Nay.
Councilmember Miller,
No,
Mayor Garrett,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
motion,
motion carried.
thank you. So now we'll skip.
Actually, before we go on, can I just talk about, mention something about the deliberation
Sure.
process for this particular issue?
Which issue?
The packet. It's the issue that I want to bring up is basically that I think the Open Meeting Act violations of this council have got to stop. It's come to my attention. I heard that there was an email that was sent about this particular topic that was sent from one council member to two other council members that was discussing the things that we just discussed here today. And the Open Meetings Act says that those conversations cannot take place in the darkness of email and have to take place, during a public meeting such as this. Likewise, I think next we're going to be talking about Eldorado Place. Last week, the same council member sent an email, debating or trying to send an email to all of the council members and was trying to get a conversation started about whether or not a 5-year versus a 10-year payback period was appropriate. And again, that's a potential violation of the Open Meetings Act. Transparency is important, and the Open Meetings Act exists so that we're having these conversations and these deliberations in a public forum. And when we fail to do that, there's a lot of liability to go around. There's a liability to that particular council person. There's a liability to the city, both in terms of the perception of the city as well as financially. And then even those of us who are on those email threads who don't respond are also liable. Case law has shown that was liable, and you learn about that in training, which is another reason why I think it's important that we all take as much training as we possibly can so that these things don't occur. Well, just wanted to make that statement.
You about to say something?
Yes, well, then that email should not be sent to all of us, then it should be blind copy or something.
So what he's saying is still the point of even blind
I
copy is,
understand what he's
well,
saying.
then if you understood, you would not say then blind copy us, because you cannot blind copy anyone either, because that is
I'm not
still
talking about us doing it,
I'm-
I'm talking
I'm
about the
just trying to
original
explain
person
to you
who sent
to
the email.
to help you. To
You're
say
not
that
helping
the
me.
blue blind CC is also a violation of the Open
I'm not
Meetings
saying
Act.
us, the email
So-
that we received came from the city administrator to all of us at one time.
Because she is supposed to send it to all of us, but as what Bruce was trying to say is the fact is that because of the Opens Meeting Act and the training that most of us have gone through lets us know that you do not respond to all, and especially try to deliberate.
I
in
wasn't
an
trying
email,
to deliberate on
If you
anything.
discuss anything in an email that we're going to discuss in a council meeting, that is deliberating. And so that would be a violation of the Opens Meeting Act. And when you are running on transparency, then how can you be transparent to the people that you serve when they cannot see or hear what you're talking about, either via email or social media? That's why the Open Meeting Act is in place, so you are transparent to everyone. So
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
This is
Anytime.
not, I read exactly what I wrote, so.
Okay,
We
so
have had the conversation multiple times. I didn't understand why it was back on the agenda.
okay, so now we're gonna open up the public hearing for the Eldorado Place Special Assessment District. Who would like to introduce that?
Oh, okay.
I can do
Just
it.
write it down.
So yeah, this is, and I apologize again for my tardiness. I didn't expect it to take 35 minutes to go 12 miles. This is a scheduled second public hearing, second of two public hearings with respect to the Eldorado Place Special Assessment District. This public hearing is focusing on objections to the role. The last time this was before council adopted a resolution that expressed intent to move forward with the project, approve the project scope and cost, and directed the city treasurer to prepare a tentative rule. That rule has been prepared. It has been made available to the public for inspection and review, as well as all the property owners that are in the tentative rule have been notified with direct mailings with respect to their inclusion in that role. So the function and the purpose of this public hearing is for anyone that is in that role, proposed role or tentative role that doesn't feel that they should be in that role. And if there's any objections to that role, that tonight is the time that those objections need to be placed on the record in front of council.
Thank you. Who would like to make a motion? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm doing too many things. The public hearing is open. If anyone wants to speak about Eldorado Place, please come to the mic or raise your hand on Zoom. Looks like no one wants to speak.
It's just for the objection, right?
It's actually for anything that you really want.
Because I
Yeah.
already spoke about it. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, so this, again, you could, if it's with respect to the Eldorado Special Assessment District, the initial public hearing was if you didn't agree with the project or you thought the scope was too large. This public hearing, you can talk about anything you want relative to it, but the intent and purpose behind it is that, let's say, they accidentally put my parcel number in there. I don't live in the district. I'm gonna come and let them know that it needs to be corrected and my property should be removed before the rule is finalized. The council action item for this evening is to confirm the rule. Hearing that there's been no objections, the appropriate thing would be to confirm that rule.
Come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Witherspoon. I'm an Eldorado resident, and I just want to make sure that when we signed on, we were told a specific dollar amount and the span of years that it would cover. And that's when I want to make sure that it is what we were told and that it hasn't changed. I wasn't able to make the last meeting, so is there a cost and a year? Is that already decided?
No, well, isn't there,
Yeah, the cost is, it was a range that was provided 132 to 180,000. And the approved duration that the last public hearing, which memory is it took place at the end of July, was that it would be a 10-year repayment period.
And the cost per month is what we were told it would be a monthly payment.
Well, it'll appear on your taxes
Taxes.
annually, and I defer to the treasurer, but I don't, can they make payment plans monthly?
They can, because it just would be on tax roll, or, you know, I mean, they would still have it on the tax roll too, they just pay it off.
And what is the cost per year then? That's what I want to make sure.
well,
Well,
it's not set yet.
130,000,
Oh, no,
180,000.
that's already been.
They're not sure what
oh
the
no,
cost is.
but her
actually
specific
yet,
one is
but the
probably
highest-
depends
It
on,
depends, yeah.
In the breakdown
I think she's asking
is, it depends on the amount of footage you have on the road itself. So it breaks it down to that amount, which was published in a previous package. And that has not changed. So it is one or the other, depending on which one, somewhere in that range, but it will be a minimum. I want to say it was between 6,000 and 9,000, depending on which property owner you were. And then that amount would be broken out over 10 years that you could either pay it off all at once or pay whatever those payments would be annually. So,
Yeah, so 5,500 to 7,500.
okay, yes.
Per parcel.
so just.
Same as what we had
There's
said
a
before.
fee.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for the public hearings? Anyone else? And there's two, you got that? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing for that, and then we're gonna go right into the action request item, the confirmation of role for Eldorado Place Special Assessment District.
You need a motion?
Well, I would like an introduction to it if possible.
Okay, so the motion before you, the property, again, this is to confirm the special assessment role and allow that amount per property to be levied as a tax against those properties that will benefit from the improvements as stated in the public notice.
Thank you. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special assessment district role.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
There is a fee though to be able to spread it out over 10 years. The
And-
fee,
Is that-
pay it in that way. There usually is, there is a 10.
There's an administrative fee that we put on, which is 10% when it goes to the taxes. Same as the special assessments for water, any special assessments for sidewalk, any of that gets a special assessment, gets a
10% for the term or per year?
no per year.
10% per year?
Yep.
Okay. I was wondering, I thank you very much for providing the information from 1991 and 1998. In 1998, the payment term was 5 years. I was just wondering why this one is 10.
Council has the right to set the amount of years to do that, and to spread that over 10 years actually gives the citizens the ability to make those payments rather than shortening or shrinking them down into a 5-year term. It just gives them that ability to afford that.
Yeah, the charter allows us to do over 10 years, and that's the point behind the admin / interest fee, if you want to call it that, to cover the cost of that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that residents do have additional time, but the city does have to pay that up front. So looking at it that way, that the city doesn't get the funds back for 10 years. So.
Is there any further discussion?
I do have one question. There's a person that has a house and a parcel next to it. So are they getting double billed?
There are 2 lots.
Yep, again, you pay per linear foot there out on the roadway. That's how it's assessed.
It's per lot, I believe.
Is it per lot? I thought it was.
It will be, either way is appropriate, but the way this was set up and approved, the last one was that it was approved for 10 years and it was approved per parcel.
Oh, per parcel,
Equal
okay.
installment.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Canes,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. And next we'll skip down to action item C, dumpster waste and rubbish discussion.
I think it's B.
We
Okay.
just did B already.
Oh,
I'm guessing you flip flop because I wasn't here. so,
Yeah, we've given you a little grace time to get here.
Yeah. Okay, so I can introduce this one. This came up, and Eric from Giffords Webster is here as well, and he knows a lot more about this than I do. But this came up because of, in part, well, primarily because of the leader agenda request item, the special land use approval for 26647 Southfield Road. Through that process at the planning commission, question arose as to whether or not the site plan review process triggered them to improve their trash enclosures, which led to another question as to which standard to apply, as there's conflicting standards in our ordinances. The zoning ordinance, zoning ordinance, which was amended in 2014, placed more stringent requirements with a sunset provision that all commercial properties in the city were to be compliant with those standards as of 2019. We haven't been able to confirm this, but I suspect that there's probably only one commercial property in the city that is currently in compliance. That's probably Michigan First. And then when we looked at with the general ordinance provisions, which are more, to use the term, common sense, I think there's an obvious conflict that council is going to have to make a decision upon in terms of how we move forward with this. A little bit of a delicate situation because the property owners that Ambassadors Institute is intending to open or operate in are kind of caught up in the mix of all this. But so this is just kind of an introduction that there is this problem, or that there is this conflict, and not that I'm expecting council to weigh in and resolve it this evening, but ideally this will be placed on a study session agenda where council can talk about it. We could talk about the ramifications of the two various ordinances and then move forward with an appropriate cohesive ordinance, which probably in all likelihood will require an amendment to both the general ordinance provision as well as the zoning code. Miss anything?
That pretty much covers it.
So if there's any questions about it, we're happy to try and answer the questions more specifically, but.
Well, I guess when the planning commission forwarded the special land use, they indicated that this should be dealt with administratively because this is something that really refers to the site and not the special land use. So I know we're going to be talking about the special land use next, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this should not delay us from approving the special land use.
It shouldn't, unless council ultimately decides that they feel the higher, more stringent standards of the zoning ordinance should be in effect, which would require that there be plans and
Right, in the
provisions in
zoning, yeah,
place. So
yeah.
Again, my recommendation, planning consultant's recommendation would be to not require internal fire suppressed trash storage for all commercial
Right.
properties in the city. It just doesn't make sense. Larger buildings, new developments, yes. But for the commercial corridor that we have with the properties that we have there, it's just not a realistic expectation. And that's kind of what our opinion is. So obviously council's free to have their own opinion on that, but
Does this do away with the dumpster requirement also?
no. So the dumpster requirement, I think, is the standards that are in the zoning ordinance are good. Those are appropriate standards, but just the requirement that every property have internal storage for trash, it just is excessive. Especially a lot of these office type uses and this, for example, this academic use, they're not going to produce the trash that would require that. They probably wouldn't even produce enough trash to require a dumpster. But I think, we kind of talked about it, and what we think the logical approach would be to allow for commercial properties similar to residential's to store their trash in containers, as long as they're adequately screened from view, and that should their volume of trash exceed what the container is capable of containing, then they would be required to have the dumpster enclosure that meets the standards that are set forth in the zoning code.
Do our current trash carriers pick up commercial trash at this point, or do they have their own companies that come and pick
No,
up
my
the
understanding,
dumpsters?
and I could be wrong on that, I don't know, but I believe that they currently pick it up if it's in the containers. And then if there's additional trash or dumpsters, then those are scheduled by the property owners independently.
With the
So
waste haulers.
The trucks don't have issues maneuvering down the alleys?
They've been doing this for quite some time already, so I don't think
There's no additional cost for commercial pickup?
that I'm not sure of.
And
Because we
as
don't-
far as I know, businesses don't separate recyclables. Is that something that the businesses will do or do at this point?
That I'm not sure of. This is just talking about waste and rubbish. It's not the separation of waste and rubbish. So it's just the whether or not to be as stringent as the zoning ordinance asks it to be in an enclosed area, or back to the general ordinance that is a little more relaxed in that, as long as it is screened. And so they're not in conflict with each other. Which one do you adhere to? Which one do you enforce? That becomes problematic. So the recommendation is to make it one or the other, but to really consider the less restrictive of the two, just because it would be very hard if we already only have one business out there that is truly adhering to this. How do we enforce that with everybody else? It's very time consuming and difficult to do, especially if you're in smaller corridors. It's very hard for those smaller businesses to have a separate area inside their building that is fire suppressed, and the ability to store that garbage. So
Yeah, and again, part of the conflict that this came up during the last planning commission meeting was, okay, so if commercial properties are not allowed to store their trash, I mean, they're not allowed to store it inside if they don't have a fire suppressed area for that. And if they're not able to store it in a container outside, well, then that would mean they have to have a dumpster. And in this particular parcel,
no room.
the dumpster would be on
The neighbor.
Southfield Road or
no place.
in the right of way on the side of the building, which is currently green space. So it doesn't make sense to kind of penalize some of these smaller commercial properties require them to have the capacity for trash if they're simply not producing it. And I do think the recycling thing is probably something that could be
Could be
included
a
in the
discussion,
discussion
right.
because,
We get money back.
yeah,
for
recycling is
recyclables,
becoming
so-
more popular and
Right.
you know, when this, like, we can assure you that when the original ordinance was drafted, recycling was not on the radar. And so now I think, and that's why I said, I think I'd like to see this as something of further discussion.
Yes,
Item
at
at
a
a study
future date.
session.
Yes.
Did the city provide their trash cans? Because they look, I did drive down there today to look at it. Most of them look like our recycle bins. But there was a lot of garbage piled up against the wall as well. To show you. I mean, this was obviously trash day today because
Yeah.
but I
like
mean, look
that.
what's left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that, the debris, and I guess for everyone should.
I know.
There- It
But
looks like
that's
there's
what
a
was
lot
left
of
today.
debris, which we can address that and as part of this, the site plan approval, the special land use approval. The council has the ability to impose conditions above and beyond what the standards are. Bruce typically does include
That's why I was
a
laughing.
daily site check or a weekly site check to make sure that things like that, those conditions where there's rubbish and trash blowing around loosely on the property is maintained and cleaned up by the property owner. So
I think the other issue that we,
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna ask a question. So if we wait to have this conversation, would that postpone, would that hinder them from their development in any way?
no, again, I don't think it necessarily does unless council is of the mindset that they want these facilities to have the internal storage as well as the dumpster enclosures. Without going into the details of what potential revisions might be to those two ordinances, I think council could comfortably move forward and direct that the waste and refuse be administratively approved, whatever, if it be screening or whatever the condition ultimately ends up being, or just the status quo, but.
That's what you're saying, the motion would be.
We can still approve the special
Yeah.
land use and then
Right.
deal with the garbage later.
Correct.
Okay.
and
thank
that's
you.
what we did in the planning commission.
All right.
I think the other issue that we had as well is, this was a building with multiple tenants, so now you can have one tenant have a dumpster, and then the others, are they legally non-conforming? And then we got into a whole discussion whether or not they were legally non-conforming, and what do you do with them?
And that's
Yeah.
just a clarification point of
Right.
the ordinance too, that dumpsters would be provided by the building
The
owner,
owner,
not the
yes.
individual business or
Right.
suites. And
Yes.
the idea that you might have 35 dumpsters.
Right.
It's a multi-tenant building. Obviously, that
No
wasn't
place for
what was
parking.
anticipated when it was
Right.
drafted, but
There's no room for a dumpster on that property.
yeah, no, this particular property, you're right. So that's all I had on that. I just, like I said, wanted to bring it to council's attention. It's something that planning commission asked that we look into, which we did, and that's what we came with.
I think we commingled the two
did.
items together.
So for item C, dumpster waste and rubbish discussion. What would you like to do?
It will be coming back to us for the study session.
Yeah.
So it still needs something to be done with this particular item.
Well, again,
Table
it's
it
not,
or-
not necessarily, I'm not asking for action tonight,
Okay.
but if
Right,
there's
just aware.
the general feeling that I'm getting from council, no one has jumped up and said, absolutely, we should have indoor fire suppression, trash storage, or is that we're all on the same page? with this?
So this will be placed on our November 28th study session.
I'm not sure the language, we'll check and make sure, but it potentially could be, or it will be in December, depending on which area that it's ready for, but it will be there for you guys to discuss and then move forward. So we'll put it on 11/28.
Okay.
One more question. Have we checked on the requirements, the fire department regulations?
That is something we can also include to make sure that we're following that. But I think our languages are pretty standard in language. It's not something that, would be.
No, the fire suppression requirement that
There.
coincides with the International Fire Code requirements for that type of, in terms of
Mhm.
fire rating, and I think it's an hour at so many degrees. But that would be compatible with what's in the fire code. Again, I think if there is, leaving it in there should a commercial property desire internal, like Michigan First has internal storage for their garbage. It was part of their plan. It was approved consistent with this ordinance. I think for a commercial property that desires that, we have the standards in our ordinance to ensure that it's compliant with fire code, the building code, et cetera. But I don't think we mandate it for every business because it's not necessarily a fit for all properties. And those individuals then obviously wouldn't be allowed to store their trash.
Other question, what about hazardous waste from, I mean, we don't know what a lot of the businesses are in the buildings. What about hazardous waste, that kind of thing? You know, there are salons, you know.
Yeah, I mean, short of, I don't know how you would enforce that, I guess, would be my response. Like, you know, short of going through their trash to see what they're throwing away. I think any company that's utilizing hazardous chemicals has to have appropriate
Well, they
yeah,
should.
well, yeah, they should, but in order to
Right.
buy, I mean, something like, I don't know if hairspray is a hazardous chemical. It might smell hazardous, but you know, there's usually a product safety sheet. There's requirements for appropriate disposal. I don't know that from an enforcement standpoint, how the city would police that unless it became a problem, like dumping it or something like along those lines.
And those would all be good discussion questions going forward with this ordinance discussion. So
Any further discussion? Next up is special land use of 26647 Southfield Road.
all right, Eric, we're going to put you in the hot seat. So go ahead and bring this forward.
So my name is Eric Peach with Giffords Webster, the city's planning consultant. It's nice to be with you this evening. The item before you is a special land use proposal. The Ambassador Institute, which proposes occupancy at the given address. This was considered by the Planning Commission in the October meeting. And it's being forwarded on to the commission for your consideration. And as was discussed, one of the things that got us kind of stumped was the application of the zoning code's requirement for interior waste storage, which the general code contradicts or is less stringent upon. And so what the applicant is proposing to do is to utilize their trash bins that are, I believe, in the alley at the moment, along with the other tenants of the building, and to dispose of the waste on the days of trash pickup. So what the ordinance says about dumpsters is that it's optional. So if a business is found to produce more waste than can be removed from the property every week, then they have the option to either contract with a private company to dispose of the waste or to implement dumpster storage on site. So since this is a smaller tenant, their option to have a dumpster is not needed for them. So they would be opting to remove their waste via typical trash container. So that was the basis of the discussion, which we had presented to you to make clarifications for the ordinance, which we're happy to do over the next few weeks. But otherwise, this is a use that is appropriate for the site, and happy to answer any questions from the review letter if you have that before you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the special land use for 6647 Southfield Road with the stipulation that waste and storage removal issues be addressed administratively.
In a second,
Second,
it's been moved to second. Is there a discussion? Any discussion?
Were there any conditions?
There were in some more conditions that were in.
I don't think we ended up, once we approved it, I don't think we had put any conditions on it other than the administrative waste. I think everything else was addressed during the meeting.
was there a lighting?
But there were, yeah.
Was there something about the light?
Lighting.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so there's a rear light on the back side of the building. And I think the conversation was just to ensure that if there's any improvements to the building's lighting, that it doesn't shine or direct light towards the single family residential neighborhood behind.
Yeah, and they agreed to do that.
So are they
Check with the
updating it?
Daily
or-
or weekly. site
I don't
cleanup.
think I put a daily or weekly trash thing on that one.
No, I
Oh.
mean, council has that ability.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're-
Oh,
if that
for
are-
trash pickup?
No, so
Oh.
having the site maintained daily to make sure that it's free of litter, debris.
Oh,
trash,
yes.
What you
Yeah.
just showed in that.
Yes,
photo.
yes.
That would be an appropriate condition to put on a
Yeah.
special.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to put my usual, daily trash cleanup of the site. Yeah, so, all right, so now I need the address again.
Here it
Make-
is.
Make a motion to, there you go, I'll make a motion to approve the special land use for 26647 Southfield Road with the stipulation that waste disposal and removal be addressed administratively, and the additional condition of daily trash pickup along the property and the premises takes place.
Second,
Second.
so moved in second. Is there further discussion?
There's no questions. The hours of, the hours that they're going to be open are 8:30 AM to 4:30 AM, so they will be open all night.
No, I think that's PM.
It's supposed to be PM.
Well, they all say
AM.
AM, so.
That's just a typo. But good catch on that.
Okay. It also says there will be a maximum of 8 people with a maximum vehicle count of 5. How is that? come into play?
That would be just the ordinance requirements.
Primarily is calculated based on usable square footage in the building. Those would be the minimum required parking spaces.
Right, that's based on square footage.
Okay, looking at the application.
Here's
What
the
page is that?
address.
Page 33, maximum number of vehicles which will be
Says 5.
attached.
Good evening.
I'm Patricia Felton. I'm the owner and operator of Advances Institute. And we calculated the amount of parking that were needed compared to the other tenants in that capacity. Our school only holds 8 students. It will never be any more than 8 students in the building. So that's why I said 8.
For vehicles?
The vehicles, it probably wouldn't be any more than 5 or 6. Most of the students carpool together, or they'll be taking the bus.
Thank you. Any further questions? Discussion?
Yes, the permit was paid for, special land use permit was paid for a resident, but that isn't the person, that isn't Ms. Felton, right?
Yes.
What is the, What's the process? well, we have a copy of the permit that was pulled for special land use, and that was pulled by a resident of Lathrup Village, but you're not a resident of Lathrup Village, and you're the one applying for the special land use.
Correct. And I still don't understand. I have to see the paper I'm referring to.
Okay,
Miss Taylor, it looks like a Miss Taylor
Lakeisha Taylor on
requested
Margate.
the
paid for
special
this.
land use and paid the fee.
No, I paid the fee. I
This
don't
is-
know who
who's
Miss
this?
Taylor is.
It shows up on her BSNA online. That's not something you know, but I know for city staff, it's on the BSNA online that's is going against that address on Margate.
Yeah, it should
Is
be.
this the right, is that the right?
It's maybe the wrong invoice that is there or the wrong
I think
receipt.
so, because I paid,
Yeah,
I came in and paid the fee.
yeah.
Well, it is confusing. It's who's this person?
I had no
Yeah.
idea.
You got some nice friends.
Like- Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please. Thank you.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes,
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Canes.
yes,
Motion carried.
Thank you, Ms. Falcon. Thank you. Next, we have the zoning text amendments, permanent power generators.
All right. You want to take this one too, Eric?
Sure.
Zoning text amendments for permanent power generators. Eric wants to take this one, but this basically was this is something that the planning commission undertook after we had received a number of zoning board of appeal requests for power generators. It caused us to take a further look at the current ordinance standards, the location requirements. And so the planning commission, after several go-rounds, last month approved this ordinance language, and it's before council this evening for council approval. Unlike a general ordinance provision, which has a first and a second reading, zoning ordinance amendments are, the public hearing is conducted by the planning commission and a recommendation is made to the city council. City council will then either approve it or not approve it, but there won't be a first and second reading.
And also just to go a little further on this, when we do notice that we have repeat requests coming that end up requiring a variance, part of that process is looking at the ordinance itself to see if that language needs to be modified. And it's why potentially a request is denied at that time because it doesn't meet the zoning ordinance. It's not a hardship. It's not, you know, whatever those things may be. It could be something that is, you know, created by somebody's want or need. So it doesn't fit into us being able to give a variance to that person, but it doesn't mean that the ordinance doesn't need to be changed. So that process brings it back and planning commission reviews it, creates that language, does the hearing, and then that recommendation comes before council. So that is the normal process and the channel of how this would be handled. So that's why that is before you tonight, is to make that final determination from the recommendation that has been given to you. So Eric, sorry, I jumped in there. I don't know if you have any more to add to that.
Just that, to stress that this is for permanent power generators, so they're not temporary. That's what's being considered. So so under section 5.16.2H, that's the main area then that's proposed where this language would be amended, and includes the 5 criteria there. And that point number 2 is that permanent power generators are allowed in all zoning districts as an accessory use, which I believe that's the same. That's currently.
Yeah, the biggest change was being allowed to locate in the side
Yeah, the
yard.
side yard.
There was just extensive discussion,
Mhm.
and Bruce, as a planning commission lead, I probably could fill you in
Yeah.
more, but there was extensive discussion about how the technology behind generators has changed, that they're actually quieter than air conditioning units, which we permit air conditioning units in the side yard. And so the idea that prohibiting them in the side yard because they may cause noise disruption really doesn't make a lot of sense. Given that technology is improved and they're not nearly as noisy as they used to be. And then also, as Sue had pointed out, the number of, variance requests that the city has received, identifying that it's an area that needs to be looked at.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the text amendment to allow the exact technical term, power generators,
permanent.
permanent power generators. Yeah.
In a second,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just have one question. So if we approve it, so do we need to then turn into the zoning board of appeals anymore, or?
Not necessarily for generators, unless someone would be looking for something, if they're looking to place it in an area that is prohibited, the
It's close to
setback.
the,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify, just to make sure. Okay, that's my only question.
Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say I'm glad this is happening, because there was seemed to be inequitable granting of exceptions. So I'm sure that Mrs. Price will be very happy about this.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Canes,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have the zoning text amendments, impervious surface coverage.
Okay, impervious surface is something, if you have a lot of concrete, a lot of ground coverage, you may have a nice big home, you've got a driveway, you've got a smaller lot, you've got an in-ground pool, whatever that may be. Those are things that are called impervious surfaces. It doesn't allow for groundwater to naturally run off and percolate through the ground. So we're looking at something here to make sure that we have recommendations for the allowance of impervious surfaces, how much we would allow in each setting there. Obviously, you've all seen some of the things that can happen when big storms hit here in the metro area and the flooding that takes place. This really does help to protect our waterways. It helps to cut down on the amount of stormwater that runs off because of the impervious surfaces. So it's a requirement that would go through and set a maximum amount, different ideas that they can do through amending this to allow 30%, if I'm reading this correctly, 30% maximum lot coverage or impervious surface coverage of 45% max. And then I believe that there were examples in there of other communities and what they have done for their impervious surfaces in coverages, such as Berkeley, Beverly Hills, Birmingham, Oak Park, and Southfield. It's all ways to help mitigate the amount of runoff that we have that contributes to flooding when we do have large rain events that take place. And I'll stop talking and let Eric jump into this, or Scott jump into this. It's just a way to protect that and improve that drainage going forward. So.
Yep, absolutely. And the council should know that the planning commission did consider the different size of lots within the community and whether or not to apply a scale factor as a percentage of lot coverage. But what was decided upon was the consistent standard of 30% requirement maximum for lot coverage. Also, we did a survey, kind of just an overall 10,000 foot survey of just random different lots within the community. And with that in mind, that's kind of where we focused our 30% as an appropriate percentage for the lot. Just taking into consideration the different lot sizes and what types of coverages those random lots had on them. So, so with the amendments, we have the section 5.17 for impervious surfaces. There was also another factor that was clarified there, point number 3, as residential lots shall have no more than one driveway or a width not exceeding 20 feet, and the length being a single most direct route between the road right of way and the garage. And this was an intention that was focused on eliminating or limiting the amount of driveway coverage on lots, which obviously is impervious surface, and to eliminate excess driveway. So the city council may wish to discuss that as a factor of these amendments as well.
And just to kind of add on to this, this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance, so this would mean that any property that's currently not compliant with this would become a non-conforming property. Everyone wouldn't be required to go up and tear up their circular driveways or excessive concrete if they had.
Really mostly affects if somebody rebuilds, raises a house and rebuilds.
Exactly, new developments, rebuilds.
So if they tore out their driveway, then this would kick in for them to have to adhere to.
Depending on, on the percentage.
The
of coverage,
configuration, right.
So you're saying if it's under, they don't have to adhere? Like if the driveway size is under
So if the impervious surface is, it doesn't exceed the maximum lot coverage that's identified in the ordinance, then they wouldn't have to do anything. But if they had a circular driveway and they were tearing out their circular driveway, then yes, they would be required to only have one driveway. They couldn't have two exits onto the road. They would have to come into compliance with the ordinance.
So they couldn't replace, if they had a circular driveway, they could not replace.
If they were
circular
doing a
driveway.
complete tear out, I mean, they could do maintenance to it, but if they were doing a complete rebuild, then they would have to be compliant with the current ordinance standard.
And also,
We should have a motion first, yeah.
Well,
I'll make a motion to approve the impervious standard text amendment.
oh, I get it there. Oh, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Then open it up for discussion. You're saying it doesn't make any sense.
I just want to clarify. So you're saying if I have a circular driveway,
You're
ju-
fine.
just explain it one more time for me.
So if you have a circular driveway and you don't do anything other than seal it, patch cracks, you don't have to do anything. Now, if you're gonna completely rebuild, like I say, it's asphalt, and you wanna put concrete in, you're not gonna be able to have a circular driveway. Because if you're gonna completely tear it out, then you have to build it to the current ordinance standards. So if you're not completely removing it, then it doesn't trigger, you're a legally non-conforming property, and it doesn't trigger that you need to bring that property into compliance. But if
what
you're
he said.
completely tearing it out and rebuilding it, then you would have to.
Okay.
So what he said was my plans for the summer are not ruined.
All of these would be approved.
Those would be.
We approve new, so if they were tearing it out and put this in, they'd be.
Yeah,
That would count toward, and so the question that Councilwoman Canes is asking is in reference to the
pervious pavement.
impervious surface options that were in the Giffords Webster review letter. So those, while those would not count towards your impervious surface, you couldn't have a circular driveway out of living pavers or what, I don't know what they're actually called.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so just to check, make sure I'm understanding correctly. Say you have a straight driveway that's a little short, no more parking pads.
That's, I mean,
That's different.
yeah, that's a different
Okay.
issue. So
So
we,
the parking pads, again, that goes towards the maximum lot coverage and maximum impervious surface on the property. It doesn't, that's a separate issue.
Okay.
This circular driveway was something that came up as part of this in an effort to eliminate or limit the amount of impervious surface that circle driveways create.
which contributes to the runoff and
I get that,
Yeah.
but the other thing is like, say you're gonna put in a pool, you're also saying that's not conforming. Or am I not getting this right?
pool would count as impervious surface, but and it would count towards the percentage,
30%. Mhm.
the 45%. So it's not out, it doesn't mean that somebody couldn't put in a pool, but it would have to conform to the 45% total.
Unless you had holes in the bottom of your pool. And it drained.
Well, any more discussion?
Yes. I'm a little concerned. There seems to be a lack of coordination and consistency because in some of the road work that has been done, people's rain gardens have been removed, destroyed, whatever. And that is something that, is beneficial to this issue. And then some of the other work has exacerbated the flooding issues. So, coordination here and consistency is important. Now, it seems like we're, going to have to undo what's already been done.
I think that's a good point to bring up, because that was part of the discussion with the planning commission, with rain gardens, and having additional features such as that. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but with that discussion, there was not a whole lot of appetite to include rain gardens specifically within the ordinance because of maintenance issues. in the
Right, and the
past.
fact that so many of them actually cause more problems than what they're designed. If they're not created properly, they create more problems than the problem
Than
that
they
they're
help
trying to
with.
solve by putting the rain garden in the first place. And
Right.
so we had the planning commission actually there's a lot of overlap between some of these issues, but the planning commission had approved a recommendation to advise council to work on an ordinance for both rain gardens, parking pads. And I think the other one was not really related, but it was decorative concrete approaches as a separate issue.
Those rain gardens are included in this information that we, page 47.
Yeah, it was included in the information and the initial letter, and then planning commission we had a very lengthy discussion, I think over 2 sessions about it, and when we came up with the final recommendation, it was just what we have here on page 49. We also talked about the roof gardens and rain barrels and things like that in terms of potential offset credits to your impervious coverage area, and we just decided that didn't make sense.
And this other thing too is as this becomes, these are, not every community has this type of an ordinance in place. And I think as these become more commonplace, you'll see this just like everything else, you'll see it evolve and you'll see those standards expand to include some of the additional things like Bruce just mentioned, the rain gardens, the roof gardens, although I don't know about that.
Right.
Yeah, so I think this is a good starting point for the city.
And I'm wondering why commercial properties weren't included, as I would imagine they contribute quite a bit to the issue.
Well, yeah, so commercial wasn't included because mainly the community built out in the sense of commercial. So we're not going to see a whole lot of, the thought is that with each individual parcel, even if it does get redeveloped, it's going to be essentially the same as what's currently there. So with single family lots, you have more opportunity to cover more of the lot if it's redeveloped. Or even if it's not redeveloped, you just add more like a pool or a deck or whatnot. So essentially that's kind of the basis of the reason why we did.
So this is more, I'd say just something that looks like we're doing something rather than what will really impact the problem. Are we doing any kind of studies on the rainwater and the runoff and all that kind of stuff? And so what's impacting our major flooding issues?
I think they're following suit with what other communities are doing in the area to help mitigate when we have huge rainwater events or rain events that flood our system, literally flood the roads, the drains, everything. So to be more consistent with what other communities are doing, it's that consistent practice across the board to kind of help mitigate those things. So if we can put that and implement that, it's forward stepping. If we just don't do anything, then we're not trying to actively be a part of the solution going forward.
There's nothing consistent with other communities for the commercial districts? I mean, it just doesn't make
And again, it
sense.
depends, like what Eric said, if they're not as built out, it's very hard when your community is completely built out, unless it's something that we would write in there that, if there's a new build like Panera that is tearing down and putting in, and we address that going forward, that language could be added. But otherwise, you're just renovating existing space that is there, and you can't, enforce that, you have to tear up your parking lot now, and or you have to have 20% of your parking spaces have to have pervious surface on them to allow for the drainage. No, pervious. Yeah, pervious, so that it helps the drain, to percolate down through the ground. That's a more difficult thing to attain. And overall, the larger components, when you look at it, are residential for the coverage here. You may see in your corridors driving, which yes, this is on your main thoroughfares, but all of that contributes to our waterways that help take that stormwater off and drain and plug up other roadways. It may not always be Lathrup Village that gets plugged up, but it runs down to other communities and floods those streets. So anything that we can do to help be mindful of that going forward really helps to mitigate those issues long term.
Yeah, and we had discussions about that, and the other issue too, I mean, you hit the hammer, the nail on the head with a hammer, and that in terms of, you know, the larger, the larger percentage is the residential area, and if you put together some type of impervious surface coverage maximum, for example, for the commercial district, you are going to completely hamstring any development that takes place in the commercial district, because I mean, one of the biggest issues, which we all know that we have right now, is parking. And so now if you say, you know, you've got to give up, you know, a quarter of your lot for impervious surfaces, you know, so now you can't meet the parking that you need to legally, you know, according to our zoning, to open up a business. So that was another reason. And I think the fact that the large majority of the percentage of our land is residential, it made sense to apply to residential.
Any further discussion?
Community is pretty built out too, so.
Yeah, so it won't have a huge
No,
effect unless,
no, so really, this isn't, as I was trying to say, there's not a whole lot of substance to this. There are plans are there plans to give it more substance at some point? Planning commission or the administrator?
That I don't know.
I think in going forward, we can always take into consideration any issues or problems, you know, with applications as they come in, single family residential lots, which I would imagine in Lathrup Village would be more amenity items like pools and decks and that sort of thing.
Right.
So as we go and review those types of applications, again, just to make note of any concerns or issues that may warrant revisiting the language within the ordinance.
If we start getting a bunch of ZBA requests for
Right,
deviations,
right.
from-
Yes.
then it's appropriate. You know what, again, one of the things too with, like, for example, the green roofs, those make more sense in a commercial district, and those may be standards that we get to at some point, because those are oftentimes membrane type roofs or whatnot. Whereas to have that in a residential, it just doesn't make sense. The cost is, I mean, roofs are expensive enough if you want to have a living roof and maintain it. In fact, right now, we're writing a lot of ordinance tickets for people that have living roofs. moms,
So, just because I'm almost siding with Karen, but just can you bottom line, do a summary of, so what is it that this is really doing for or preventing the residents to do? And how is this, I mean, the pros, the cons, and just in layman's terms of.
I think the biggest thing for me would be, you know, the takeaway that we would be looking at in the residential setting, how much impervious surface coverage there is. It would be something that would be a requirement, like Bruce stated, or was it Scott stated, with, you know, adding decks or pools. If you're replacing a driveway, to make sure that the driveway is within, you know, the length that is required in the ordinance, that all of that together does not cover more than 45% for impervious surface.
So let me give you this example. So say you have a driveway that was non-conforming, right? So it's too big. You pull that out because you're going to replace it, new concrete. You're saying that they can't put it back to where it was at. It has to now be within this particular.
Correct, that's the potential of that.
So why can't, okay, if it's this size, why can't you just include the permeable pavements to keep it that size? I'm just lost.
So you're kind of mixing a couple of things there. The size of it is going to be limited to the 20 feet.
Right.
Of 20 feet width. That's a pretty wide driveway when you think about it. And then the length is going to be the most direct route. So you're basically, what this is trying to do is, this is trying to say that, okay, we understand that residential properties, paving or making their properties impermeable to water is creating a problem with drainage. We're not going to tell anybody to tear up what they currently have, but we're not going to let it get any worse. We're not going to let you continue to expand it. This is the maximum. And then if as parcels do redevelop, or, you know, then they would be required to come into compliance. But but it is addressing the issue. It's stopping it at this point. Eventually, this whole world's gonna be a concrete parking lot if we don't start doing something about it.
See, my concern is if something happens to someone's house, just catches on fire or whatever, and you have opportunity to correct some other things, we limited what a resident can do. Like just, again, I can only keep doing the driveway scenario, is that if you already had a very large driveway or whatever, let's stay with the driveway, so I'm confused, a very large driveway, and you're saying your house burnt down to the ground, you have an opportunity to pull that out and redo it with, asphalt or something. And what you're saying now is that you would not be able to do that with this particular ordinance in place.
Not necessarily. It would all depend on your calculations. And as Eric had indicated, the survey that they had done, most of the properties in the city are already compliant. This
Okay.
would just prevent further expansion, further, paving of those green spaces, those otherwise pervious surfaces with impervious material. It's encouraging the use of pervious pavers and material, things like that. And then separate is the driveway width and length. It's, I don't know that there's a single meandering driveway in the city right now that takes the least direct path to from the street to the home. But again, it would prevent the situation of people expanding their driveways to have a circular drive or two entrances onto the roadway. And again, because all that does is that exacerbates the runoff problem that the city is already currently experiencing.
And you can't abstain from this vote, right?
It says they did a random sample of 14 properties. And not, you just said that that majority of residents in the city.
It's a majority of what the residents in their survey, they did a random survey of property.
14. We have 1,400 residences here. They did a sample of 14.
I didn't do the sample that Eric talked to, but they were randomized. My understanding of the discussion of it at the planning commission was that they were randomized based on their size and shape. So if it,
Yeah, and as it states in the letter, the lowest amount of impervious surface of the sample was 24% and the highest at 53. So that's where we took kind of the in-between number to come up with a standard, which the planning commission again did discuss. Like I said, they were considering smaller lots versus larger lots and perhaps doing the scale depending on the size of the lot, but ultimately decided on the percentage that was chosen. And so the idea also is, the hope is to not have a whole lot of variances, but that also is an option that if a certain application comes in and has a justification for going over the maximum amount of coverage, that a variance option is available also.
But why was the sample so small? That's 1%.
It was just a random sample of different properties throughout the city. We can go back and do a larger one. I mean, if it's important to do so, we can do that.
Did one of them include what you thought looked like a really big driveway?
Yeah, I believe there was.
Is that the
one.
53%
Yeah.
one?
So, any further discussion? Public comment.
Yeah, just
I had a question on
the percentage.
Public comment.
All right.
No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennings,
No.
Councilmember Canes,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
No,
Mayor Garrett,
I'm gonna say no.
motion denied.
But what I would like to say is that I think that I will agree with Councilwoman Miller to have a larger sample. I'm just curious. I just don't want to have people's, our residents' hands tied, just in case. It's not personal. but I don't want our residents hands tied. So if we can do a bigger sample and then because it was denied or it didn't go through, we can bring it back again the next meeting.
Can you also let us know what impact that would even have on it?
To do a larger sample.
No, not to do a larger sample, to implement this ordinance, what kind of impact is it even gonna have on the yes, I mean, on the water.
Overall.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is it, even going to do anything, put strict restrictions on residents or, what is the benefit?
Okay, that's it for our action requests. We have new business. First one is council meet with public discussion.
Yeah, I put that on there. I asked to have that on there. An idea I wanted to throw out to council, and I'm hoping we can all agree that this is something that we would want to do. I don't think there'll be much of an objection, but transparency and council person accessibility is obviously very important to our residents. And while we have public comment sections at our meetings, in fact, we actually have 2 public comment sections at each meeting. That's kind of a one-way, time restricted manner for residents to provide their input. And it doesn't really afford the opportunity for conversations and discussions about the issues and the concerns that residents have. So, I mean, last April, I tried to get a kind of an informal Ask the Council Person program started, and that fizzled for a variety of reasons that I won't get into. But what I'd like to do is propose a new program, kind of like I guess call it a council person office hours. And what I was thinking is that, once a month we could, have a council member at City Hall for a couple hours. So residents can come in and talk to that council person, give them their opinions, thoughts, questions, whatever they want to talk about. And what we could do is we could have it rotate from council person to council person to ensure that each council person, gets equal opportunity to sit in that role. And we could use the city administrator to do the scheduling of that, as well as, the advertising, on all the usual stations, the e-newsletter, online website and so forth. But I think that would give, residents just one more opportunity to have accessibility to their council people. And assuming there are no objections from council, obviously we need to discuss it, but I'd like to get this thing started at the end of November and do the first session. And then what we can do is schedule the next one for one of you to do it, and then the next person and the next person, and just keep rotating it. So that's my idea.
There's no way we can do this with like just all of us. I know like in the city of Detroit, they just have a night meeting where residents can just pretty much
Town
have
hall.
a conversation instead of one-on-one. I just know the last one was a bit much. And I think we need like staff, we need like some enforcement.
Right. I mean, we could do, I mean, that could be another idea as a town hall. The last one turned into something that it was not meant to be. What I was attempting to do was something like this, where we have a chance, for them to access us, and a town hall is a good idea too. We could do, a town hall additionally, give them yet another point. Maybe we do a quarterly town hall or something like that. But
I think that we should do, I like the idea, well, we do night meetings. I just thought about it. We'll do that night.
You know what I mean.
The town hall is a good idea. I can say for being out of town for the last 7 days, I have been very accessible and no one has not been able to get in contact with me. Between text, cell phone, calling, emailing. So part of me says, yeah, that's a great idea. The other part of me is that for me personally, I work. And so having office hours at the same time that the city is open is in straight conflict with my job.
it doesn't have to be during the daytime. I mean, you could be during the daytime sometimes, you could be in the evening.
But then you would be forcing someone from staff to be here at night also.
I think if it's scheduled, and you guys tell me what time Normally, unless it's on a Friday evening, I'll fight you then, but I don't mind being here in the evening to be open. I always have work and I'll just come in later that day so that I can sit in my office and work. And then you can sit out in the foyer or the lobby there. And as people come in, it's something you can do. It's just another opportunity. Some of you may be able to meet during the day, and that may help residents that can't come out or don't want to drive at nighttime. And others, you know, like you may be at work during the day and it's easier for them to come in the evening, but it gives that rotation and that different time frame as long as it's publicized and we have it out there for citizens to know, okay, this month is meeting with mayor or mayor pro tem or council person, and the meeting time is on this day at this time from in these hours, you know, from this time frame. And then that way, you know, people have that ability, but that's just that option if you're up to that.
Part of my platform was doing town hall meetings where we actually have dialogue and listen to residents. What are your concerns? What do you want from us? What's important to you? And so doing this one-on-one kind of thing doesn't give the entire council an opportunity to hear from a variety of people and to actually, again, have dialogue. People come here, say what they want, and you know, many times there's no follow-up, there's no response, there's nothing. So to have a public town hall where people can come and talk to us and, you know, let all of us know so we all hear it at the same time. You know, I don't know, I just see this one-on-one thing perhaps creating some other issues.
Well, it'd be the responsibility of the council person to bring what they hear to council.
Aren't we
I'm
already-
not disputing the town hall is a good idea. I think that's a great idea. I think we should do that as well. But I think this is just one more way of giving people accessibility, and you know, it'd be the responsibility of the council person who does it to bring the council, you know, at a meeting like tonight to talk about what they heard. If there were things that need, you know, and I would assume that every single one of us is going to follow up with, you know, people who come. I mean, what? You gonna say
Well,
something?
aren't we, I was gonna say, aren't we already following up and meeting with people? I mean, people call, like Kelly, call and text, and I hear from people all the time, and I do bring up their issues. So, and I do work during the week, and it's gonna be kind of tricky. But I would love to, I mean, I'd certainly make time for a town hall with all of us.
No, it's not a decision that you have to make tonight. So, I mean, you can think about it, or you can, I mean, I have no problem with you doing it. I just don't want to have it where it's something written in stone for all of us having to do it. And if we can't do it.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've wanted to do this for a while, but I was worried about the opposite side of you know, of me doing that and then others saying, oh, well, why is he doing this every week? I want to do it. So it was the complete flip side of what I was
But
concerned
now I'm remembering that now. Take it offline. I remember when someone else tried to
So
do it and you
yes,
weren't, and you
exactly.
weren't thrilled about it.
Yes.
But that was right, and
So-
exactly, and that's why I was trying to do it in a formalized process so that there's no misperception about what's going on. Yeah.
Well, there's not, we don't have to, I mean, we don't have to make a decision on that. I personally would do the town hall with all of us. And I believe residents know how to get in contact with me. Trust me, I know the residents know how to get in contact with me. But up for discussion, I'm just saying it for one person. So is this a dead horse yet, or?
I think it can come back to discussion, but for now, you know, study session or something, we can figure it out.
We'll put it on the next study session too. Next one is the infrastructure committee report.
Okay, yeah, I got a lot here, unfortunately. I was not able to make the last council meeting, so there was a lot of stuff I was gonna talk about last time as well. But the summer infrastructure projects are mostly done. We're finishing up the final steps on a couple of projects. And we're working on some remaining punch list items, so some things like mailbox repairs and barricade removals. There are a few punch list items that will be postponed till next spring because they're weather dependent, and so there were a few concrete driveway approaches that got banged up a little bit in the during the construction, and some things like seeding and reseeding that can't be done because it's too cold. So those things will be done in the spring. But I really throw one more really in there. Want to thank the residents for their patience and understanding during a very long construction season. You know, we did a lot of work. Things didn't always go the way we wanted. You know, we had some issues with our contractor, especially on the road project, where they had trouble staffing, like every other business right now. They had trouble getting materials. So that really interfered with one of the things that we were trying to really improve on, which was communication. So we'd go knock on everybody's doors, put door hangers, say, all right, your street's getting done in 2 days. You're not going to be able to use your driveway for 3 days. And then the contractor couldn't get staff and they didn't show up. And they said, oh, we'll be there a week. So we did it again, and then they didn't show up. So there were issues. It didn't always go the way that we wanted it to, but we did get a lot of work done. And again, thanks for the patience and understanding. I think everybody knows that we have 2 3-year projects that are simultaneously going on. One is our road project, and one is the capital improvement project, which is mostly sewer and water improvements. From the perspective of those 3-year projects, this was the worst year, and we knew that going in because we grouped all of the more intensive construction together in the same year because it would be cheaper to do that, so we could get more done and get it done quicker. So next year, especially with respect to the road project, on a relative scale, it's going to be a lot quicker because even though we're doing a lot more road, it's more of a kind of an in and out thing. They're just great grinding off the top layers of asphalt. It's more simple construction and then replacing it. So that's going to go should go a lot faster and a lot smoother. So as I said, you know, the progress takes a little bit of pain, but I think it's worth noting some of the accomplishments that we've done and what your tax dollars have been used to do, so you have a sense of where they're going. With respect to the road program, this year we did 2.6 miles of road. Last year we did 2.1, so we're at about 4.7, and next year we're expecting to do about 3.3 miles of road. And actually, that's more than what we had originally thought we were going to do based on the estimate for the millage. And in fact, and we should know more within the next month or two, but you know, year one, we ran under budget significantly, and we think we're actually going to be able to do a fourth year where we'll do another mile of road. So we actually may get 9 miles of roadway when we had originally only anticipated 7. So that's really good news. Sidewalk repair program. This year we did about 2,100 flags or blocks of sidewalk. Last year we did 1,900, and next year we're anticipating doing about 1,200. And then in addition to that, we also did through funding through the DDA, we did the bike path along 12 Mile, and I don't know if anybody's had a chance to be on that. It's awesome. They did a fantastic job. I'm on it almost like every other day, and really happy to see that. Water main replacement. This year we did 1,750 feet. Last year we did almost 2,000, and next year we're going to do about 1,600. And again, we think we're going to have some remaining funds from the water and sewer project, so we're estimating about 1,300 to 3,200 feet in year 4. That's good news because anybody who's paid attention knows that our water system is old. It's over 100 years old in a lot of places. And you may see, you know, notifications a lot about the water main breaks. That's because our water main stock is very old. So the more that we can replace, the better. Fire hydrants, we replaced 36 in 2021. We were supposed to do more this year. We only did 28, and it was a real struggle getting materials, getting new fire hydrants. So one of the things that our city engineer is going to do is work with our city to try to do a lot of the ordering for next summer now, so that we can have a lot of lead time to get these materials, because we've got a lot of work to do next year. So next year we're going to do almost 100 fire hydrants because we did so few this year. I take that back, wrong line. 56 fire hydrants, and it didn't sound right. Gate valve replacements. This is really non-sexy stuff, but this is where the valves that are used to close off water main sections. When we have water main breaks, we have to do maintenance, and we have a very large percentage that don't work because, again, they're over 100 years, about 100 years old. So we replaced 40 of those in 2021. We were supposed to do the same amount this year. We only did about 24. Next year we have to do almost 100 of them. And really good news here, when we did our original budgeting, the assumption was we were going to have to replace about half of them. and refurbish the other half. And what we're finding is that almost all of them can be refurbished, and the replacements were about $8,000. I think $8,000 each. The refurbishments are, just a few $100s. So again, we saved a lot of money there to be able to put towards other activities. Exterior water material excavation. So that's, you may have seen, by the sidewalks where they're excavating down to look at the material of the pipes going into the stop boxes that lead to the houses. The state has mandated that we do 315 of these. We've done 124 last year, 115 this year. We've got 76 more to do next year. State also mandated that the city replace lead service lines if we find any. The good news is we're not finding many. We still have a ways to go, and there's a whole nother project that we approved at our last meeting to do service line material identification in the homes. But we aren't finding as many as we thought, but we've done 21 replacements that the city has done already. Storm sewer cleaning and televising. We did 9 miles of cleaning this year and televising. We did find some issues. In fact, we're working on one of them right now. I think at Wiltshire, we found one 24-inch line that had collapsed or was near collapsed. And so we're in the process of repairing that. And then the sanitary sewer, last year we did a big project where we cleaned and televised, and we found about 2 miles worth of high priority problems, and we've addressed those this year. Next year, we're also going to be doing a $500,000 retention tank project. So we have is it 6 million or 60 million? 6 million gallon tank. Yeah. I don't know. It's a very large tank.
It's a big tank.
Over by Michigan First that stores raw sewage. And we're doing a lot of upgrades to that and a lot of repairs, and that'll be done next year. And then the other thing I was going to talk about this at the last meeting, water meter replacement. The study group has put that on hold. We're waiting to hear what happens. We have a water loss consultant that we're working with on a particular project, and we're waiting to see the results of that, because one of the reasons, there were several reasons why we were looking at replacing the water meters, and one of those reasons was that we thought that they might be running slow, as they tend to do as they age, and so that was a contributing factor. But if we find that the smoking gun is something else, then we'll revisit that decision. So we kind of put that on hold. So none of this stuff, as I said, is sexy, but it's all necessary stuff in order to maintain safety and provide us and ensure that we have continuity of services. We want our water flowing, we want our sewage going away from our house, and so on. It helps to maintain our property value. So again, I want to thank the residents for their patience and understanding, and wanting you to know how tax dollars are being spent. The other, yeah.
Can we all get a copy of that?
Yeah, I mean, we Sue distributed.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to distribute.
Oh, I
So,
thought you said you gave everybody a copy of it.
no, I mean, you can have my
Oh, yeah.
copy.
Yeah,
So,
we'll make sure everybody got copy. I'm sorry, I thought everybody had a copy of it.
Yeah,
No.
I can send that out
Yeah.
right now.
All right, the next thing on infrastructure, I want to give a water loss update. I know we've talked a lot in the last year about the issue that we have on water loss, and as I mentioned a minute ago, we have a project that we're working on right now with a water loss consultant. And all the water that comes into the city comes in through a meter that Sakwa owns. That's where we buy our water from. And it's over on 11 in Southfield. And one of the things that we've theorized is that when we have low flow, that meter is too big to detect the flow. And what it's doing is erroneously overbilling us for water. So what we did is we put a clamp-on meter, a second meter on that site. And we're using that to compare the results of the two meters. And is it off now? Have they? only gonna be on
I
for a
have not
week.
gotten news that they've taken it off. They just put it on.
Like a week ago, I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was supposed to be on for a week. So
Yeah, so they should be taking it off soon. But the issue, or the next step is that they're going to do the data analysis, which should take a month or so, and hopefully, what we're hoping to hear is that meter is oversized and that we can recoup some funds, as well as put a smaller meter on there that will read more accurately. But there is some other good news with respect to our water loss. Again, over the last few years, the city's been investigating potential water loss causes and eliminating the possibilities one by one. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of water infrastructure, so it takes a while to do that. It's a slow process, but over the last, I think, 8 months, we've identified some things that we've talked about on council. You know, we had the issue where our larger water meter customers, the 1.5 inch customers who use the most water, were being dramatically underbilled, and we're recouping about $130,000 of underbilling and keeping that problem from progressing into the future. We've started doing more aggressive repairs of the faulty transmitters on meters. Those are the transmitters that tell us how much water our customers have used. And the problem is if they're not working, we give an estimated bill. And most of the time, the estimated bills are lower than the amount of water that the users are using. So they're aggressively fixing those. We've identified a couple large customers whose installed meters were reading how much water they were using, but they weren't registered on our system. So we're back billing them for those large amounts of water. And again, that problem has been taken care of. So it won't go on into the future. And then the other thing is that we, a few weeks ago, maybe it was a couple months ago at this time, I have a compressed view of time, but we found a leak in a infrastructure pit in one of the fields at the academy that was kind of on one of the back fields that wasn't being used very often. So there was nobody there to notice it. And we suspect that might have been a long-term leak. So all these things together, you know, we're cautiously out, and I'm using the word cautiously optimistic, but the water loss rates month to month and quarter to quarter tend to vary dramatically. But when you look at the last fiscal year, on average, our water loss was about 35%. When you look at the first quarter of this new fiscal year, we're down to 16%. So that's really good news, especially if it stays that way. And then in addition, you know, if we find out that we have this issue with the water meter at 11 in Southfield, the Saco meter, that might actually help us to lower that even more. Now, we're never going to get to zero. I mean, if we stayed at 16%, that would be great, because we have an old system. As I said, a 100-year-old system, they tend to be leakier, and you tend to see higher loss rates as systems get older. But I think that's great news, and fingers crossed that, you know, the loss rates stay that. And then the last thing, I know this is a lot in infrastructure. One last minor thing. The folks on Cambridge, you know, they came to us for a special assessment district that it be set up because they had drainage issues with their ditches, and they asked for us to do a repair at their expense that they were going to split, and we completed that project at the beginning of actually in the spring, and they're seeing great results. They're not flooding anymore, but the really good news is it looks like that came in about $11,000 under budget. So for those residents who are splitting the cost, that's a fair chunk of change that they're not going to have to cover. So that's what I've got in infrastructure. It's a lot. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Next, we'll have public comment. It's open for pretty much anything you want to say. And it's for 3 minutes. And if you would like to speak, please come to the microphone or raise your hand if you're on Zoom. So public comment is open. Whoever would like to speak, come straight to the microphone. Thank you.
Mayor and council members, my name is Lillian Lowry. I'm a resident of Lathrup Village. I live on Roseland. And I do have to say quickly that the mayor is available, as well as the city manager. They're available. They have been available to me. They actually gave me a chance to have a meeting with them, each of them, as well as with the police chief. I really appreciate that time. But I still, and I appreciate that time, but there still is an issue. I have been harassed by my neighbor for the past 2 years. And I've called the police a number of times, and the police say they can't do anything about it. They say that they can't. I had a PPO, I have video, I have pictures. The person's followed me. She stood in the middle of the street yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs. They say unless they see it, they can't do anything about it. We've hired the police department to protect and serve, and I don't feel protected or served. And I just want to bring it to your attention. Hope that the council will take a look at what are the requirements for the police to do something. You know, I have my son, I have 2 daughters, I have a 16-year-old daughter. This person, her daughter is 29 years old and was threatening to have a fight with my 16-year-old daughter. Nothing seems to be done, could be done about this. I'm bringing it to the attention because I hear there are other problems with other neighbors and this should not be allowed. And she's using the code against me. I put up a fence, a barrier, so she can't see me, I can't see her. But she calls about it. Someone's in my driveway over the thing. It could be, it's a Saturday night. And she called the police, and the police came and was about to ticket my person. And then the police officer said, we're here because people are acting like children and can't get along. I didn't call you. Why am I being singled out? Why is the code being allowed to be used against me? And we're saying we want to pass these new things we just talked about. We don't have a code enforcement that can go around and say, okay, this person fence is not in compliance. They should have to comply just like I would have to comply. And that's what I just want to bring to the attention. Again, I appreciate the time that the city manager as well as the mayor has given me. I've emailed the mayor. She's been very attentive to it and she's heard my cry. She's limited on what I'm sure what she can do, but all of you collectively can address the police department and saying that it's not enough to say that go get a PPO. Now you got the PPO. She does something, report it. Then we're going to send a note to the. I still got to go to court to try and get some support. This person should not, even today, put up Christmas lights. She's talking about people are hood rats. I have a degree from the University of Michigan. My son has a degree from the University of Michigan. He is an architect. He has a job as an architect.
Thank you,
I work
Ms.
for GE Healthcare.
Ms.
I'm not a
Lauer.
hood rat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
Thank you. Laura Barris, resident. I'd like to start by asking the city attorney to explain why Proposition 1 was written the way it was. There seems to be a lot of discussion on social media about supposed deception and confusion about how it was written. And what I understand is that allowing the businesses like marijuana dispensary was already in the city charter. I also understand that city council decided to allow a vote on whether or not the residents want to change the charter, thus removing that opportunity. Yes, remove the vote. Or residents did not want to change the charter, thereby leaving everything as it is. No, don't remove the vote. Please, if you would verify that or correct me so that the residents that feel that they were purposely being deceived can be satisfied by that. A couple of our friends had offered signs for my yard that opposed the Prop 1, and I gladly accept them because I was all for the opportunity of dispensaries opening up in Lathrup Village. I had seen firsthand how dispensaries in Plymouth, Ferndale, Southfield, and Ann Arbor had improved the areas where they were located, and we were very hopeful that the increase of our tax base would benefit the entire community. This is all moot now as a proposal to remove this opportunity for our charters passed. What's not moot is Councilwoman Miller's continued harassment of me and my husband and her continued attacks on our First Amendment rights. Believe me, I'm sorry to bring this up again, but it establishes a pattern. As you know, because I've been attending meetings ever since, in August, Councilwoman woman Miller crashed a private meeting in my home regarding her possible recall. She was covert and was discovered, and not only was it embarrassing for her as the police were called and there's still an investigation pending, but it inflamed her friend, our neighbor who displayed disturbing behavior ever since, just like the lady before me. But this was promoted by a council person. Then in October, Councilwoman Miller told a resident who is a buyer of the House of the Woods property that it was my husband that had taken out a FOIA request on her communication with them, and that he should ask my husband, called him out by name, and he was sitting right next to him, why he did that. She actually pitted resident against resident when she knew the FOIA was taken out about communications she had, and it had nothing to do with the buyer. This is simply not okay. And luckily, my husband addressed the buyer immediately to correct her mistake and set him at ease. Earlier this month, Councilwoman Miller posted our names and the names of other Lathrup Village residents on social media posts as people that opposed her views on Prop 1 and have signs in their yards, and insinuated that we were doing something illegal by having these signs in our yards, and further asked residents to ask us where we got them. I'm not sure what Councilwoman has targeted at us or why she would single out any resident that has opposing views as people that are up to no good. Maybe it's because we wanted her recall. I get that she didn't like that, but we were exercising our First Amendment rights. It's not, I'm sure, the position of council.
Thank you, Ms. Bears. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, little different tone. My name is Dorothy Reed. I live on Rainbow Court. And I just wanted to thank the council for approving the changes for the permanent generator. I'm a neighbor over there. You mentioned this price, but I'm the neighbor that had a generator put in 3 years ago and got 2 permits and didn't know about the zoning permit, but I really appreciate it because now I don't have to spend lots of money to have it moved, and I don't know where I would move it to anyway. So I wanted to say that, and also to thank you for the resurfacing of our street. We had a few hiccups. We still got some things on the punch list, but overall, it's a big improvement, and we got through it okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. Coates?
Hi, I'm Lori Coons, a Lathrup resident, and I just wanted to make a comment on the infrastructure when you talk about the roads. I realized that they said they would finish in the spring. Are you Scott? Okay. I'm sorry. I spoke to Scott a couple times because my sprinkler system was totally ruined. And he said they'd be back to fix it. And they didn't, they came back, but it's 100 feet of pipe and heads that weren't put back. And my concern is ruining my sprinkler system because the pipes can't be totally blown out, but they said I could probably be okay. And as far as communication, I do have a different view. I have emailed and I was looking for the dates the times to the city administrator and didn't get an answer back, and that's why I found out it was Scott Raingler, so I went directly to him. But, I'm very unhappy because first day it was sprayed, someone ran over my ditch and the culvert indented it, and that's just what they repaired.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience?
I'm Bob Barrett, resident. I'm sure it's not the position of council to publicly call out residents. We're asking Councilperson Miller to refrain from attacking residents on social media. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, going to Zoom. You're muted.
Okay. Hi, my name is Elaine Mantinen. I've been a resident for almost 10 years. I have always loved the strong sense of community in Lathrup Village. I volunteered for a number of events. I've been on committees and in community groups. I was very shocked and disappointed when at a city council meeting earlier this year, Councilperson Kinez's husband threateningly told me to take my kids and leave. Now Mr. Kinez has been roaming around stealing people's campaign signs. That's completely unacceptable. The concept that only certain types of people with specific beliefs should be allowed to live in Lathrup Village is something I thought was just gotten rid of, abolished decades ago. We're a diverse and vibrant community, and we should be celebrating and embracing that. It's really hard to see elected officials who claim to represent all residents and listen to all voices, instead picking and choosing who they will listen to while supporting censorship and targeting people they don't agree with. I never thought I would see the day in Lathrup where we would have council members and their spouses targeting people because of their political views and hiding in bushes to spy on people. I hope others will join me in asking them to do better, and I hope anyone who violates a law will be prosecuted for their crime, regardless of their relationship to a member of the city government. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak? see anyone. So I do have a couple of public comments, which I'm hoping they were sent to the. Okay. First one is from Michael Keenan. It was recently brought to my attention that Councilperson Miller called my name out on a Facebook social media site, the Lathrup Village Voice, suggesting I and other residents were acting inappropriately for having vote no on proposal 1 signs in our front yard. Excuse me. I have a number of concerns and issues about this behavior. I am not a member of the social media Facebook group, and if it was not for a kindness of a neighbor, I would never know my name was being used in such a way, nor could I defend myself. Most importantly, a council person charged with representing all residents should not be using social media to accuse residents of wrongdoing for something that's perfectly within our legal right to do. Even if I was a member of that Facebook group, I would not be able to see her post calling my name out because Councilperson Miller has blocked me on Facebook. I would like to remind Councilperson Miller of her campaign promises to represent all residents of Lathrup Village. If this type of behavior continues, I will seek other legal means of correcting this disturbing behavior. Thank you for listening. Next one is from Jason Hammond. At the August 15, 2022 City Council regular meeting, Council Member Karen Miller publicly stated that she has blocked me and other residents on Facebook. Because she has blocked us, we have had no ability of our own to see what she has posted on Facebook. When any council member makes a post on Facebook about any issue which could be deliberated on by the council, all of the residents and voters who the council members represent should have free access to that information. By blocking me, Karen is actively preventing me from having free access to her statements about city issues. On November 2nd, I became aware that City Council member Miller posted a comment on Facebook post on the villagers page asserting without evidence that Mayor Pro Tem Cantor has a connection with the political group who organized the placement of the political signs in Lathrup Village, and asserted that he is prioritizing non-residents over residents. She also posted a photo of Mayor Pro Tem Cantor's front yard along with her comment. She also posted a comment naming several other residents who have political signs in their yards. I was only able to learn of her comments because one of my neighbors made me aware of it. I find it ironic that City Council member Miller complains of people bullying her on social media, then uses social media to attempt to bully fellow council members and residents, the people that she was elected to represent. At April 18th, 2022 City Council regular meeting, I asked, is the villager page on Facebook an authorized communication channel for the city? And if it is, shouldn't all residents be able to see what our elected officials are posting on that channel? I still do not have an answer to those questions, so I'm reiterating them again tonight. In addition, I'm reinstating the fact that I have emailed Councilmember Miller in the past, received responses from her saying, enough of your BS, Jason, and why are you asking me what the city is doing, and what my ideas are. Councilmember Miller ran her campaign for city council on the platform of responsiveness to residents, fiscal responsibility, and rebuilding community. I come here tonight to ask Councilmember Miller if she truly intends to be responsive to residents and focus on rebuilding community. I'm done. And you want to say something again? Because that is public comment and I have to. You can go again too. I have nothing to do until 9 in the morning.
I just really have a hard time sitting.
Can you make sure?
What happened to be kind?
Yeah.
Let's get back to that, okay?
Okay, hey. Go ahead.
Thank you. Lauren Coon speaking. Yeah, I sit here and I listen to all this bashing with Karen, and I know it's a master plan to get rid of her in many ways, but I can look right here at this council and know for a fact that a couple of you lie outrightly to us, and I have proof. And as far as Kelly goes, you should have recused yourself from the marijuana vote because your husband is in the marijuana business and it should have never come to be. I have proof, and it's really funny to laugh at me because my lawyer will be happy.
Okay, and hey, 1 second. The thing about it is, and the reason why I am going to address that, because one, show me your proof. Because one thing that I am gonna say, and I'm gonna recuse myself of being a council person right now. Do not bring anything else to me about me or my family without any type of merit behind it. Documentation is what I want. Otherwise, and
Documentation, we sit here live to us.
stop. So the thing about it is, I'm not going to deal with that anymore with, that's personally, I'm not dealing with that with you.
I'm gonna
anymore.
call for a
Okay?
recess.
And
This
so,
is
thank you.
inappropriate.
And it is. So
This is
I will call
inappropriate
for a
all
recess.
around. This is inappropriate. Numbers running each other against each other. This is like middle school student council. This is a joke. And everybody should look at themselves because this is not one individual being singled out. Residents are entitled to have different opinions. Residents are entitled to have different beliefs. Council people represent the entire city, the entire body. You can't pick and choose who you represent if you're sitting on a council. You're a public servant. It's embarrassing.
It really is.
Council members should never discuss city business. Nothing good happens on social media is where you post pictures of cats and puppies, and kids. It shouldn't be where you have discussions. If you want to solicit information about great. You shouldn't be engaging in dialogue. You shouldn't be bashing your fellow council members. It goes both ways. Just enough is enough.
And all of that is foiable, and it costs a lot of money to archive all of that. It should not be done.
Not an official city page. Shouldn't be, you shouldn't be talking about social media.
It seems like you all pick and choose of what's right and what's wrong. That's where I'm having my issues at. You know, that's my issue. Because the thing about it with social media, we need to get it under control. There needs to be something.
Well, I'm asking him, we're exempt from it. He's already told us numerous times we're not to be on it. I'm not on it. But I'm asking our planning commissioners and other commissioners held to the same standard.
No.
I mean, there's a social media policy for all staff, council, or appointed positions. It would be in everyone's best interest to reread it.
I don't know what to say. I don't think this woman knows my husband's name. let alone- Whew. I'm sorry. What's my husband's name? I'm just curious. What's his name? Right off the top of your head. Barb, just give me 2 seconds. I'm just
this anymore.
I'm just curious.
I know where it belongs. I know a lot.
Just like you told me my street was paved and you don't even realize I lived on the same street as you.
I know it. But you said it to me directly, and I'm recording on it, so you can laugh.
You know,
And I think I'm gonna FOIA the road construction. This Scott Wrangler told me that we don't have enough money. Hey, Bloomfield.
okay, so are we going back into recess or I mean, we're out of recess? Are they still in the hallway? Bruce, Jalen, city attorney, let's wrap this up, please.
Yeah.
Back to the fun stuff. Okay, sorry. We're gonna recess. We have one more person that is on Zoom. Let's stand up.
Hello?
And you can speak.
Yeah, good evening, Ian Ferguson.
Can
Really,
you turn your volume up or something?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Hello? Can you?
Hear you.
Hello?
Can
you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. It's really a shame that we've come to this. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. It's been happening for the last 8 months. And I think I logged into a council meeting and I insisted that we try to get control of council people that are posting on social media. I seem to recall over the last 6 years, Scott Baker, that you and I had an agreement that council should never chime in on city council issues on social media, with the exception of the mayor, to be the voice of city council. Now it's seriously embarrassing seeing people in the audience accusing the mayor of propagating marijuana when we clearly know that that's not the case. I'm asking the city manager and the city attorney to really take control of the situation. There's one person in council that's doing this. Yes, I'm blocked also by Councilwoman to the far right. It's a disgrace to see her call out city council people and residents, and she is supposed to represent everybody. Please just come to some sort of consensus. I'm asking you to do that. I'm also asking to really check the Open Meetings Act, because she's been violating that as well. No one's really saying anything about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like for public comment, speak for public comment? Nope. Now it is time for mayor comments. My mayor and council comments. First, I want to say to Kelda, thank you for the way you handled the election for your first go around. So I
Great job.
appreciate that. November 17th, Veterans Resource Fair through Oakland County. It's in Lake Orion, but it is also in your newsletter to find out exactly where it's at. November 26th is Shop Small Local. That's gonna be 12 to 4 here.
Yes.
Okay. And then we are doing a hat and mittens drive from December 1st to December 31st. And one thing I was gonna also ask for is when it comes to like with the infrastructure committee report, that all committees are given the opportunity to report out on whatever they got from the meetings they've gone to have them spelled out. It used to be on here where it said committee reports. And then I would suggest, this is just a recommendation, that anyone that really wants to be, to report out, submit something to you by like Wednesday night or so. I'm not saying that you didn't, but that way it's just consistent that everyone's able to do what they need to. Miss Lowry left, so I'm not able to address her concerns, but the one thing that I will say, and this is what I did tell Miss Lowry also, is that people use code violations to harass you. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's not what we do not have a code enforcer to drive around right now to check for violations. And one way that if you are trying to get under your neighbor's skin, I guess you just go and you make violations, or you say what's wrong, as we told her when she was here. But it was suggested for her to get a PPO and to continuously call the police on certain activity that was going on. Ms. Barris, the deception of Prop 1, and I'm hoping that you can speak to that because it's not the first time that I've heard about that.
Yeah, so I did take some notes on that. I mean, the charter, the charter amendment language was presented to council. Council approved that language. We tried to make it as direct as possible. Should cannabis be prohibited in the city? Yes or no? I can understand if you phrase your signage a certain way, but I mean, if you read the proposition, a third grader would not have a hard time understanding that. Yes or no, should cannabis be prohibited? It wasn't yes for cannabis, no for no cannabis. It was, you just have to read it. I don't know how else to explain it. We try to make it as simple, least complicated as possible. And that's it's approved by council. I don't know what else to say about it. The accusation that there was some sort of intent to deceive is completely baseless. It was the opposite. It was the intent to clarify and make it very simple for people to understand. Contrary to some of the other proposals that appeared on this November's ballot, which were
Right.
very complicated.
Right, exactly. Ms. Reed already left also. And for Ms. Kuntz, since you have your pen and paper out already for sprinklers, it was in our e-newsletter. You want to send your information about the sprinklers to CIprojects@lathrupvillage.org with your name, address, phone number, and picture if possible, and it will be forwarded to the contractor for repair and inclusion on the punch list. Elaine Mantonin about the sign stealing. I'm not sure whose sign got stolen and all of that. I'm just saying that's just disappointing. It seems like it's disappointing. I've heard about it. I don't think that residents, regardless if you are a spouse of a resident, should be kind of overstepping your bounds to be doing city business, and that is picking up signs. It is the responsibility of the police and the code enforcers for signs being in our right of way. Rather, and that's just fact. I'm not saying they did it or not. So next thing, regarding the marijuana vote, I'm not really sure what Ms. Kuntz is talking about with the marijuana vote, because the marijuana vote was on the ballot. So I don't know how I can recuse myself, because I am a citizen and I can vote whatever way. And I don't know how you have my ballot to know which way I voted. So that made me kind of confused on that one. And then I would love to give you another, I'm still talking though, thank you. So, and still talking. So wasn't really sure about that. And I will say to the residents that my husband has nothing to do with marijuana. And I would really like for my family to be cut out of personal vendettas that people have against me. And then I'll just leave that. If there's any proof that you would like to give to me or whatever, that would be absolutely great. And I would welcome it so we can squash this. Okay, get your lawyer. That's great. Okay. Still will be. Joy of the Lord. Anyway, so I'll just leave it at that. So I'm gonna be, what else? There is something else I had to write down. Said that. Okay, I think I'm done. Who's next?
I have a couple questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, now I remember. I'll go last.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Since it's on your mind.
No, I don't trust me. I'll
All
remember.
right. Kelda, I know you said you were going to post election results on the 9th. Where do I find them?
They are posted downstairs on the board.
Oh, not on, I thought it was going to be on the website.
We'll get that.
Okay. Was one. I sent 2 requests from Yolanda with Friends of the Library, one on June 9th regarding a memorial bench, another one on 10/3, and I saw her today and she hasn't heard from anybody. Is there any update on that?
Who was it sent to?
So that's the one that I also followed up with you. It was the it was something that I followed up with you maybe 2 weeks ago about it's a bench that's supposed to be put outside. And I want to say that the cement block was put out there already for the bench.
I don't know that that's for those benches. Pam's not here and that's something she's been handling. So let me get back with you.
Well, it's 2
What is
requests
the
for one
name of,
bench.
what is her name? Yolanda?
Yeah, she was.
It's
copied-
for I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
Haynes or something?
I can re-forward that. I know she was
Please
taken
do.
off the,
Please do, thank you.
so that was 10/3/22.
Okay.
Tree grant allocation. Do we know how that money was spent and did we get trees?
There is a write-up that is coming out to you in the Your Town publication that will go out in December. And I just got the information today, so I haven't read through it, but it will be there for you.
And deadline for putting things in our town publication.
ASAP. I hope to have it out to the publishers the beginning of December. So if you have something that you would like to send, please send that to me.
And Pam is gone. My other questions for Pam. She's gone. Pam.
Yeah, I don't.
All right, I'll
see
catch her tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have, I'll send it to you again regarding the benches.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Just brief. So I have coming up, I have a senior appreciation luncheon on November 22nd. It'll be starting at 12 noon. So I just wanted to let everyone know to stay transparent. So you can RSVP. There are already 25 RSVPs. You can reach out to Brittany Dorsey let me get her contact information.
Yeah, it's bdorsey@lathrupvillage.org.
Yep. Or I know some seniors might want to call, so you can call her at 248-557-2600, and the extension number is 246. And also, I just wanted to clear up that the event will be paid for by the city, but it will be reimbursed through the CDBG funds. I know some people have some questions about that, and I just wanted to clear that up and let you know how the event will be sponsored and paid for.
I do have a question. What qualifies as senior?
I don't know.
5'5"? 5'5" or 6'5"? I don't know. I mean, people.
And why are you the sponsor?
I'm not the sponsor. I just decided to host the event. I asked to host the event. just
Okay.
like
And
the auction.
anybody else,
Past
anybody
hosting
else can.
events, with a previous council member.
Are you asking the question?
Well, I wasn't allowed previously. I know that was a major issue. So I'm just.
Was there a reason though why it wasn't
Because
allowed?
she
I
was-
wasn't here.
It wasn't
Um,
not, it was
so
never
she
not
wasn't-
allowed. It was not,
Okay.
it was a conversation that came up about her hosting the event, but it
So-
was never not allowed.
So anything going forward, I would encourage all council members, if this is something that, you would like to have a luncheon with the public, I think it's a great way for you to be able to get to know your community. This is a large demographic of Lathrup Village. And it is a great way to be able to utilize CDBG funds for this. It's not something that is going to be political. It is more of get to know your council person. And I would encourage all of you to set aside something like that and choose another demographic. If you want to do lunch with the seniors again, I think that's great. It's something that really does help you be able to listen to seniors that day. And I would encourage you to come to it. And it's something that has been done. There have been many other applications where CDBG funds have been used very similarly. So this is not a political, I'm running for office, I'm doing this, I'm doing that type of thing. I want to make that very clear. That is not what this is about. It is a way to be engaged with the citizens that you serve.
It was definitely a problem previously when Donna Stallings would host coffees with the police department and invite residents. And I believe that Mr. Cantor had a big problem with that because it was using city resources. So I don't understand why this is any different.
It was using city resources. It was using her political email, political campaign email address. It was using her phone number. All the advertisements that were done about that were in self-promotion. And my issue with that was that the city was paying. My issue was that the city should not be paying for the usage of the room if this was a personal event on her part. So that was the issue that I had there.
And all this is going through the city. I mean, his phone number is not on there, it's not his email address, everything's on.
So why isn't this just a city event that all
It
of
is a
us
city
are.
event.
are
You're
I was
welcome to
invited.
come.
You can
What's
come.
that?
You're
It is
welcome
a
to
city
come.
event.
Okay, there's just multiple double standards, so that's fine.
Well, no, there's a difference. I want to make very clear. This is not a political thing to
I'm not saying
promote
it's
his
political.
campaign. But that was exactly what
Well, I'm
Donna
gonna ask
Stallings
Donna if
was
that's what she
doing.
thought that she was doing, but she probably did.
So again, the difference was that it was not going through the city. It was just using the city when she was doing it. So I don't, it was her phone number. You had to get tickets from her. You had to go through her email address. That's different than what's going on now. This is where you register and you go through the city.
And I
Then-
would encourage you to do something similar and set up another date and enjoy that time for the community to be able to get to know you, each one of you. I think
Even
that
let
that
us-
would be
let us know
wonderful.
what funds are available to do something like that. That would be great. We can all.
You can
utilize the
utilize
funds.
CDBG funds just like Jalen is doing.
Okay, and how do we know what the funds are and how much is left and that kind of thing?
It's a grant type of thing
Mhm.
that the city pays it and then we submit the funds and we're reimbursed for that.
There's no limit on it?
Well, don't be facetious
Well, I'm
about
not being
this. Yes, you
facetious.
are.
No, I absolutely have not.
If you're charging $100 a plate, that's ridiculous. But this is something that, if you're truly using this as a platform to be engaged with the citizenry that you serve,
Mhm.
not as a campaign platform, a political platform,
Mhm.
but as a way to be engaged, that's different than doing it as a campaign type of thing for your own
I'm not
personal
talking about- I'm
gain.
not talking about that. I'm talking about what funds are available. If you can let
I
us
just
know
told you
what-
that.
And I asked, there's no limit to it? We just can submit and they will reimburse
So the
us?
cost that Jalen has is just a little over $1,600 for 50 people. That's basically $33 a plate.
Okay,
And if you can stay in that same frame, more power to you. I think that that's a great way to be engaged with your community.
I did not know that was an option. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I just have a couple of things. We approved the paving of Eldorado Place, but the maintenance of the rest of our gravel roads has significantly declined over the years. I've heard lots of complaints that the roads are not maintained, and so I'm just wondering what the plan is to make sure that the rest of the gravel roads are taken care of as they should be. Not sure who that goes to. Also, I'm just wondering, why did it take 5 years to address the water issues after we've lost almost $2 million?
Who are you addressing that to?
I'm addressing that to the infrastructure.
To Bruce?
Actually, I think I'm going to jump on that one first. Anybody that has worked in infrastructure knows how hard it is to pinpoint a leak. We don't even know that the meter that has had the additional meter clamped onto it is the issue. As was just brought up, we found a huge leak out behind the school that nobody is around. And it was before the meter. So there was water going and going and going into that pit and draining off. So that has changed the dynamics of the amount of water loss. It is pinpointing, it's doing research. It's not something that you can look at, oh, here's a pipe that is not working anymore. This must be where the leak is at. It's not something that you can determine by one thing alone.
No, but you could determine it by studying data and studying water bills and all those kinds of things. So it should not have taken 5 years, and it was not addressed until fairly recent.
But it is being addressed, and that does take time.
That's just, I can speak to the past. That's just not true.
Okay,
It's been, you asked a question, I'm gonna answer your question. So it's been 4 years.
2017.
Go ahead.
Yeah. As has been shared multiple times, there is at least a page of line item listed items that the city had been trying. We've got 20, for example, we've got 27, I think it's 27 miles of water main that doesn't get checked overnight. The city administration in the prior years was looking into it, checking off individual items as they were going through, trying to determine, could this be the leak? Could this be the leak? They use seismic listening devices. There's hundreds of gate valves to be checked. We talked about earlier today, the difficulty of getting to some of those things. It's a slow, methodical process. About, I don't know, what was it, about 8 or 9 months ago when I started to have some more free time, when I wasn't dealing with in depth on all the other infrastructure issues, I asked to start looking into some of this stuff, and we started to find things that, as I talked about earlier, it's not an overnight, it's not a snap your decision or snap your fingers type of thing that you're going to find. We've done data analysis. That's how we started to suspect that it was the overnight issue with the low flow. It's not something. It's a very difficult problem to isolate, and it's not $2 million of loss. For starters, the best that we're going to do is probably cut it in half, which I talked a little bit about earlier. And that was a revenue number that you're quoting, not a cost number. Now, granted, it would be great to have that revenue, but again, it's a lot lower than that. And we're going after the funds that have been lost. We're recouping $130,000 from the underbilling of the 1.5-inch meters. We just hit up a client for $53,000 that was due to continual estimated bills. If this meter turns out to be the SACWA meter turns out to be the one of our smoking guns, we're going after SACWA for a refund of that money. What were some of the other things? We had a couple clients, very large clients whose meters weren't registered. We're going after them. One of them is being required to pay us $35,000, I think. The list goes on. I mean, it's not that we've been sitting here twiddling our thumbs. It's just, it's a hard thing to determine where the problem is. And we're getting it. That's why we hired a consultant to try to narrow this down, try to figure it out.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, Bo Tamarelli is the one who brought up the overnight flow
Bo
issue.
Tamarelli is
And the
not,
infrastructure.
Bo Tamarelli was not the one who brought that up. Scott Ringler, Bo Tamarelli, who I have nothing but great things to say about Bo Tamarelli, who has helped us immensely in the water loss investigation. He spent hours and hours, tons of hours helping us out. But he confirmed what Scott Ringler was already looking into about the overnight flow.
Well, it's good to know all the things that you've done, because in my infrastructure FOIA that I submitted in March, that is what I asked for, what had already been previously done to address this issue, and I still have not received that. So thank you for sharing that information at this point.
Are you all set?
Nope, I'm not. Though I have repeatedly tried to keep the focus on city priorities, given the fact that an unfortunate incident that occurred in August continues to be brought up and mischaracterized on Facebook and during public comment at council meetings, I feel the need to give an update. I received a call last month that the Oakland County Sheriff's Office closed their investigation, dismissed any related complaints. There were no charges filed of any kind, and the case is closed. To be clear, there were never any charges filed against me, and I did not commit a felony or any other crime. The sheriff's office only became involved because the Lathrup Village City Administrator and Police Chief chose to turn a complaint they received over to the county, given it involved me, a council member, and they considered it a conflict of interest. I recognize that every citizen has a right to engage in political conversation, discourse, debates over whether to recall me from council or any other topics they choose. However, this incident has been presented in calculated, one-sided mischaracterizations, including involving the local news station syndicate to perpetuate this false narrative over what actually occurred and to attempt to frame it as something that happened between me and a random group of concerned citizens is false. All I will say is that out of the 12 individuals I understand to have been involved in this incident, at least half of them, this includes 2 former council members, one of whom lost his reelection bid, another who was speaking this evening, a current planning commissioner who also had something to say this evening, and a current council member's spouse had various disagreements with me and or instigated other hostile conversations in the course of the last 20+ years I've been involved in our community. The worst thing about this is the negative impact it had on my daughters during what should have been a very happy time planning a wedding. I thank them for their support. But in response to Mike Keenan, Ian Ferguson, they've been harassing me for 7 years since Michigan First. Jason Hammond, there's a whole story behind blocking him. So regarding the signs, the issue was that there was no indication of who paid for the signs. The signs were illegally placed. The police officers spent a lot of time removing the signs and no one knows who was responsible for them. That was why I had put something out about asking the people that had the signs up. It was a public display of signs.
All done?
I'm all done.
Is there anyone else that would like to?
Yeah, a few things. So I wasn't at the last meeting because I had car issues and was stuck out of town, but I was going to issue an apology to Mr. Barris from our council. Because, and it was, I mean, they talked about it earlier tonight, so I don't need to revisit it, other than the fact that Mr. Barris was inappropriately outed for filing the FOIA, and it was inappropriate that this confidential information was revealed by our council, and Mr. Barris had later informed me that it created that conflict, the resident-to-resident conflict, and he was upset about that. But to me, what was most disheartening about that was 20 minutes prior to that, we adopted an ethics ordinance that says, and I'm quoting here, city officials shall respect the confidentiality of information concerning the affairs of the city. They shall neither disclose nor divulge to an unauthorized person confidential information acquired in the course of their duties. So had that resident that was here wanted to know, who had requested the FOIA, he should have had to, submit a FOIA himself to get that information instead of the requester, being outed publicly. So from previous discussions that we had after the meeting, I want to apologize to both you and your wife for the undue stress that caused. And as a council, we should have done better to protect your privacy. So I apologize for that.
Are FOIA requests confidential instead? Or is that public information?
Their FOIA requests are FOIA-able, but they shouldn't, I mean, to Bruce's point, and the ordinance wasn't adopted, there was the approval of the first. reading.
Right,
Still a
that's what
second
I
one,
meant.
but yeah, that's part of it. If there's information, I mean, typically we don't give out like code enforcement. If someone wants to know, the woman that was here speaking earlier about her neighbor complaining about code enforcement, that information shouldn't be shared freely. Negates or deters people from making those types of complaints for fear of retaliation, things of that nature.
Regarding the election, Kelda, again, congratulations. You did a great job. I also want to, regarding the trunk or treat activity that was sponsored by the DDA, I want to thank the Lathrup Village DDA, Susie Steck, and the DDA board, and especially Brittany Dorsey and her team. That was an amazing event. It was incredible to see. It was like pre-COVID all over again. I mean, both parking lots were filled. The overflow parking lot was filled. We had to park across the street. The kids were having a great time. It was just a great event. Sue, if we could talk to Tringali again. I've had complaints from residents, and there was also a thread online, I think a month ago, and I've seen this firsthand, just the abuse of the cans. They take, a lot of times they take the cans and they just throw them. People have been complaining about broken wheels on the recycle bins and broken garbage cans and so forth. So if we could look at that, that would be great. This came up tonight, but I just want to make sure that this doesn't get overlooked. The planning commission, requested council update the noise ordinance and an ordinance regarding parking pads, rain gardens, and decorative approaches. So if we can get that on a study session in the near future, that would be great. To Ms. Kuntz and others, I'm just fed up with hearing all of this. I've got evidence, I've got proof.
Stop talking about.
As I said, to Ms. Kuntz and others, You know, if you've got issues and you've got evidence, talk to the city attorney, talk to the Secretary of State, but and I know there's not, because none of this, the stuff is crazy. Yeah, you know, there was a lot of public comment tonight about the signs and so forth, and I had comments that I was going to read because Ms. Miller also targeted my wife. She targeted myself. She posted pictures of my home online inappropriately. But
You know, that's very dangerous. You know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the
Do you
current
really-
state of things that are going on. I think about Nancy Pelosi's husband, the person that popped in. That's very dangerous of going down this road that we seem to be going down. And
Political
just-
signs are a public statement. They were in the yard.
but taking a picture and posting it of a council elected official's home, that's just, and I'm sorry, that's just inappropriate to me. And I think
Well,
that
I
that's
don't know.
it's a slippery slope. I think it's dangerous. And it's also scary coming from someone whose house has been egged and spray painted. So I just really, that's dangerous, Councilwoman. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just my thoughts.
no, just
Well, if you go back to the first road millage, when a group of residents had a meeting and your wife was all over Facebook telling us that people had to have a committee and.
His wife's not a
register and all
councilman.
that.
Exactly. That's the
Right.
whole point.
Right?
His wife is
She's
not a
not
councilman.
elected.
my wife is not a councilman.
And family
the-
should be
the-
off limits.
The difference there is there was a group that distributed information. She was going after the committee, not the, screw it, I'm reading this.
And what are the, who was responsible for the signs?
There's letters that was written, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't there a letter, Sue, of who was responsible for taking the signs?
I'm sorry.
Are you saying who took the signs, or are you
No,
saying?
I said who-
That's something you're gonna have to take up with the Secretary of State. That still has
Yes.
nothing to do with targeting an elected official's house. That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous.
I'm gonna
That's
say it again,
interesting.
because people are entitled to have different opinions. Because you disagree with someone's opinion, doesn't mean you can blast them on social
We
media.
don't know if I disagree or not. No one knows what my opinion
Well, then
was.
why,
All I
why
wanted
are you
was
putting, why
was
are
an
you call,
election.
I mean, who deputized Karen Miller to oversee the Secretary of State's campaign signs requirements?
You know what, I wasn't gonna read
This
this,
is-
but I'm gonna use my public, I'm gonna read my comments.
This whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it
old because
really
we're
is.
going on a year
year.
and there is no progress.
It goes
Is-
far
is
back.
that-
I don't
It's-
think reading
it's
the
what-
comments is gonna
I-
help.
I
Can we
don't,
just
I
stop
agree.
the-
There's,
Can
maybe we could
can-
agree to move forward,
Yeah,
starting.
exactly.
But
new
we've been
term.
saying that, we've been saying this
But
since.
there's bigger
since
issues
November.
in this
Exactly,
city that need to
exactly.
be addressed rather than
This nonsense.
the expression water under the bridge. I mean, throw out whatever you want to call it. People's feelings have been hurt. They feel they've been misrepresented, misled. Nothing is going to change about the past, regardless of what we continue to do to attack each other. All it's going to do is derail and delay moving the city forward. And the individuals that get hurt are the residents. This political gamesmanship or personal conflict is not serving the residents, which I believe every person on this council has been elected to do and wants to do.
True.
It's a new year. I think everyone should think about a New Year's resolution of moving forward, working together and focusing strictly on city business.
I'm gonna
The
say,
idea of trying to bury somebody or having it's what's the benefit?
I think that, you're absolutely right. I think that when it comes to saying it's nonsense, I really don't, affecting family. I'm not gonna stop hammering that home. A man was beat up because his wife was the Speaker of the House. And just because it might be on that level, you just don't know what's going on in this world today and how people react. Maybe people did not know where Bruce lived, and now for sure they do. That's just dangerous, and I don't call that nonsense. I call that very serious.
Right, I mean, the fact that we
And-
now have security cameras on our home and we have, alarm systems, I mean, it's ridiculous.
So I hope that, maybe we all can just go home and decompress and come back ready to work for the residents, all of the residents, not just a select few. And allow, your house has not been vandalized, your house has not been on Facebook. So I'm just saying that, so maybe we can all take a step back and realize that we're the council, the people that are sitting here. So, and that's how we should be acting. And I would say this, and then I'm going to ask for a motion to close. And if anyone else would like to come and say they have proof of something, please bring it and show it to us, or take it to the police chief, or again, take it to the Secretary of State, the Sheriff's Department. Let's resolve it. If there's really an issue and you have real proof, resolve it by showing it. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I guess we're done.